Welcome to Wisdom Trek with Gramps. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, and we are on day 2570 of our trek. The purpose of Wisdom Trek is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, and to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. In today's Wisdom Nugget, we'll be exploring Psalm chapter 48, verses 1 through 8, a psalm of praise that celebrates God's greatness and His protection over His people. Psalm 48 is a song of Zion, the city of God. It was likely sung in celebration of God's deliverance, possibly after a great military victory. The psalmist paints a picture of Jerusalem as an unshakable fortress, not because of its walls, but because of the presence of God Himself. This passage reminds us that our ultimate security is not found in human strength, but in the God who reigns over all. Let's begin by reading Psalm chapter 48, verses 1 through 8 from the New Living Translation. How great is the Lord, how deserving of praise. In the city of our God, He sits on His holy mountain. It is high and magnificent, the whole earth rejoices to see it. Mount Zion, the holy mountain, is the city of the great King. God Himself is in Jerusalem towers, revealing Himself as its defender. The King of the earth joined forces and advanced against the city. But when they saw it, they were stunned, they were terrified and ran away. They were gripped with terror and writhed with pain like a woman in labor. You destroyed them like the mighty ships of Tarshish, shattered by the powerful east wind. We had heard of the city's glories, but now we have seen it ourselves, the city of the Lord of heaven's armies. It is the city of our God. He will make us safe forever. The psalm begins with a declaration of God's greatness and worthiness of praise. How great is the Lord, how deserving of praise, in the city of our God, which sits on His holy mountain. This verse immediately establishes who God is and why He deserves worship. His greatness is evidenced in His presence in Jerusalem, described here as His holy mountain. Verse 2 continues, It is high and magnificent, the whole earth rejoices to see it. Mount Zion, the holy mountain, is the city of the great King. Here, Mount Zion represents Jerusalem, the place where God's presence dwelt in the temple. But beyond the physical location, Zion symbolizes God's eternal kingdom, a place of joy, strength, and divine protection. Imagine visiting a great city, perhaps seeing the skyline of a place like Rome, London, or Jerusalem for the first time. The sight of the ancient structures and the historical landmarks fills you with awe. Now imagine a city established by God Himself, a place so glorious that the whole earth rejoices to see it. The question is, where do we place our trust? The world offers many things that seem strong and secure, such as wealth, power, status, but only God's kingdom is unshakable. True security comes from dwelling in His presence. Verse 3 declares, God Himself is in Jerusalem towers, revealing Himself as its defenders. The strength of Jerusalem was never in its physical walls, but in the presence of God within it. The city was secure because God was its protector. This points to a greater spiritual reality. Our ultimate safety is found not in our own defenses, but in God's presence. No matter what challenges we face, God is our shield and our refuge. Think of a child who's afraid of a thunderstorm. The storm may rage outside, but if the child is safely in his parents' arms, they feel secure. Likewise, when we trust in God's protection, we find peace even in the face of turmoil. Are we trusting in our own strength or in God's power to defend us? This verse reminds us of the true safety is found in Him alone. Now, the psalmist shifts to a historical moment of divine intervention. The kings of the earth joined forces and advanced against the city, but when they saw it, they were stunned, they were terrified and ran away. The scene is dramatic. A coalition of kings marches against Jerusalem, expecting an easy victory, but when they see God's presence protecting the city, they are filled with fear and flee. Verse 6 continues, They were gripped with terror and writhed with pain like a woman in labor. This description emphasizes total panic. Instead of fighting, the enemy is overcome with dread and confusion, much like how God struck fear into Israel's enemies throughout its history. Think of a moment when someone expected an easy win, but were shocked by the outcome, like a sports team underestimating their opponent, only to be completely overwhelmed. The enemies of God thought they had the advantage, but they did not expect to encounter His power. We often face situations where the odds seem stacked against us, but when God is on our side, victory belongs to Him. We don't need to be afraid. He fights for His people. The psalmist then gives another striking image of God's power. You destroyed them like the mighty ships of Tarshish, shattered by a powerful east wind. Tarshish was a distant and wealthy port, and its ships were symbols of strength and commerce. Yet even the mightiest ships could be destroyed by a single wind from God. This verse reminds us that no force on earth can stand against God's will. The ship on the ocean may seem indestructible, but when faced with a hurricane or a tsunami, it can be torn apart in an instant. And that's how easily God dismantles the plans of the wicked. Are there forces in your life that seem unstoppable? Trust that God is in control. Even the strongest opposition is nothing before His power. This portion of the psalm concludes with a powerful affirmation. We had heard of the city's glory, but now we have seen it ourselves, the city of the Lord of Heaven's armies. It is the city of our God. He will make it safe forever. At first, the people heard of God's greatness, stories passed down from generation to generation, but now they have seen it for themselves firsthand. This verse reminds us that faith is not just about hearing, it is about experiencing God's presence for ourselves. Imagine reading about breathtaking destinations, perhaps the Grand Canyon or the Swiss Alps. You've seen the pictures, you've heard the stories, but nothing compares with standing there in person. And that's what it means to see God's power in action. Are we experiencing God's presence firsthand, or are we relying on only what we've heard? He invites us to see His faithfulness for ourselves. And here are the key takeaways for today, for Psalm chapter 48, verses 1 through 8. First, God's presence is our true security. Next, He fights for His people and defeats His enemies. Third, no earthly power can stand against His might. And finally, faith is not just about hearing about God, it's experiencing Him personally. Psalm 48 reminds us that God is our fortress, our defender, and our King. No matter what challenges we face, His presence gives us security and strength. Thank you for joining me on our Wisdom Trek today. May you walk in confidence knowing that God's kingdom stands forever. Until the next time, may His wisdom guide your steps, and may His peace fill your hearts. And if you found this podcast insightful, please subscribe and leave us a review. Then encourage your friends and family to join us and come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, creating a legacy. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, and most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal. And as we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward. Enjoy your journey and create a great day every day. See you next time for more daily wisdom.